Cyber Reapers. Hello, Cyber Reapers. So, tonight, or today, whenever, wherever you are, I would like to talk about a book. Now, this book is very special to me because it's the book that, way back in 6th grade, it's the book that I read, and it's what got me into reading and writing science fiction. So, it's very close to my heart, very near and dear, and I actually haven't read it in years, so this past week I did a reread of it, and it holds up. I still love it. The plot is so captivating, the characters are just so amazing and funny, so I'm happy to share this with you about my rereading experience. As always, it's spoilers free, but I will talk about some of my impressions of rereading, just as an added extra bit of a topic of conversation, because I think this is maybe the second book that I've gone over on this channel that is a reread, and it's also the second, or that other book was also a favorite of mine. I enjoy rereading whenever it's been a little while. So I'll usually either reread something just for the fun of it, or in preparation for the next book in the series to release. This trilogy though is already it's been done for a few years now, so I plan on reading the next 2 books as well and talking to you about those. From what I remember, things get crazy, but I really don't remember the ending, so I'm pretty excited to remember it as I go. And there were a couple of events that I thought happened in this book, but I'm thinking probably happened in the second book, because as I got to the end I went, well, that's not in there. So a lot of stuff to look forward to. So what is this book, right? I actually have a hard copy of it. And you can see it's pretty well worn. I've had this copy since 6th grade, so it's been it's been at least a decade. I know it's kind of funny to not exactly know the amount of years, but I don't know, school went by very quickly after the fact. It really did not go by quickly. But looking back on it now, yeah, I remember I made a little hat. I don't know why that was a project, but when we were assigned, essentially we weren't assigned this book specifically, but in 6th grade there was a period of time where they said essentially pick a book off of this list, and I think it was a list of books that were given a certain award maybe, or I don't remember the details, but this book was on that list, and I think I was maybe the only kid in the class who chose it, so I didn't have anybody to talk to about it, which was sad, because this was so good. But then, for whatever reason, there was a little project we were supposed to make a hat, a cap style hat, out of paper, and about whatever book we read. So I made a little makeshift craft hat that was it had this little thingy. I drew that on there. I think I tried to do stuff with wire and sparkles with orange and red and stuff, and so I recently remembered that because I guess just as I read this, memories of the time period of my life when I read this, those memories started coming back up, as well as memories of the book, and I just thought that was super cool. I don't know if anybody else has experienced that on rereading a book, so that's why I wanted to say that. But yeah, it's nice and worn. So this book is called Insignia by S.J. Kincaid, and it's the first of a trilogy. It's a young adult science fiction. It's set in the future. And that future is I don't actually know exactly when, like what year this is set in, but the future is eerily, it feels very real. The future that's in this book, it takes place during a war, World War III specifically, and instead of it being a war that's fought on Earth where people die, instead people have kind of moved past that and have decided to fight for resources on Earth in space. So, or resources in space as well. They fight over those too, like spaces on other planets or asteroids. They fight over that. And the two sides are pretty much like divided by regions and the capitalistic corporations that sponsor those regions. So there's the American Indian Alliance, which like includes like America and India and also like a lot of Europe and Australia. Like there's a list of countries on that side, a list of countries on the other side as well, including Russia and China. So that's like the Russo-Chinese side. And there's I think a group of 12. Let me check. There we go. I don't know how well you can see that, but there's like, yeah, 12 corporations that are listed on here. Those are the bold ones, and there's 6 on each side. So those are the corporations that kind of run the planet. And they're the ones who really have stake in this war. And they chose their sides, you know, based on region. And those corporations, they have a lot of control over the planet in ways that I'm honestly a little surprised that people haven't done already. For example, one of the corporations created a patent for a like pesticide technology kind of thing that essentially like multiplied or spread itself into all of the food supply on the planet. And so therefore, because they owned anything that was theirs and patented, they owned all of the food. The book explains it better, but essentially they own all the food. In a very similar way, another company owns all of the water because of something being in the water that they own. So that's just wild, and I'm kind of going, why hasn't that happened yet? That seems like a thing somebody would do. Try to claim ownership over all the food or all the water in the world by sticking something in it, like sticking some kind of technology in it. Anyway, that happened though in this book, and a lot of other events, and a lot of other technology development that seems very plausible, not only in like the future, but in the near future. So it's creepy in that way of pointing out just how much people, when you combine technology with like capitalistic greed and corporate greed, just how much people are willing to sacrifice their morals for, or any sort of ethics to justify anything they want to do for the sake of greed, and how technology can really empower that, or empower is maybe not the right word, but bolster that. So it's really neat. That's the kind of world you're getting into when you get into this series. So just as a heads up on that. But the main character who is, you know, the focal point for all this, his name is Tom Raines, and he's a 14-year-old kid who, at the start of the book, he lives with his dad. Well, lives with in the sense of he and his dad go from casino to casino, just playing games to pay their rent for the night, or to pay for staying the night. But sometimes they don't get enough money, so they'll sleep in parks or on benches, They don't have a really stable home, and Tom is just kind of used to that. Growing up, that's pretty much what he experienced. And his mom left when he was young, and she moved in with her boyfriend, Dalton. He's important, that's why I mention him. He's affiliated with one of the major companies, and so I don't know how much I'll really talk about him, but I just wanted to mention him in case I do come back to him, because he is an important character in the book, but I think his importance really plays into events that are kind of in the middle to later end of the book. But just to kind of describe a bit about, Tom's family, he doesn't like Dalton, and he kind of feels separated from his mom, but he doesn't have a lot of connection to her. And his father, he does have a lot of connection to, but his father is a gambling addict, and he keeps thinking or saying that he's gonna win it all back again, and he's gonna be able to get them a stable life again. Because at one point he did actually win really, really majorly, and he was able to to spend lavishly. But since then he's lost it all, and so he's just hoping to get it back again. And he tells Tom it's so they can, have a sort of stable life and get back on their feet. But it kind of sinks in for Tom that that's not really what would happen. What would happen is probably his father would gamble it all away again. Another thing to note about his father, too, is he's very anti-corporation. And so just a lot of Tom's stubbornness and his defiant nature, I think, comes from his dad. And Tom's stubbornness definitely gets in the way of him getting off easy from really difficult situations. But I love him for that, and I'm going to explain why in more detail. Let's see, should I talk about that now or later? Probably later, I'll come back to that. So that's where we start. That's our premise. Tom, throughout that time growing up, he has he's gotten really efficient at playing games and also at conning people out of their money. Because being a scrawny 14-year-old boy, people underestimate him. So he'll make bets with people and essentially con them out of their money while gaming and beating them at games. And that pays for them to stay the night at places, for Tom and his dad, Neil. But Tom skips school a lot. He goes to an online, remedial kind of school, where he logs into a VR set and, goes to school there, but he doesn't really stay participating all that much because of how unstable his, internet connection can be. He's always moving around, and he's not always in a place where he can actually go to school or log in, to do so. So, I think I'll put the book down, even though I'm so excited to hold it. Where was I about? Okay, school. So that's kind of where we are at the beginning of the book. That's Tom's life. And he doesn't really think about the future. He just kind of thinks about, getting shelter for the night. So, Tom living that life, right, is general for the United States military, and this general wants to recruit Tom to be one of the combatants in this war. So, I don't entirely remember if I already explained this, in case I haven't. The war is fought in outer space, and the soldiers are called combatants, and they are known only by their call signs, except for the two, figurehead combatants, one from each side. And so, but other than those two, the rest are, top security clearance. The public doesn't know about them. At least not their names or faces. So, yeah, the combatants, those are the highest ranking of, in the program. They're the ones who actually fight the war. And there's this program, though, that trains more people to become combatants. And I say people, it's actually young adults or teenagers, because their mind meshes best with the technology that the military uses to control the ships in outer space that actually do the fighting. Adults cannot do it. They tried, and that experiment did not end well. In fact, one of the very few survivors is one of the characters in the book as a teacher who is kind of a little abrasive. But at least he is not clinically insane as he used to be, because the technology drove him insane. So that's why they use teenagers who actually can meld their, bodies and minds to adapt to the technology more. So, this general, though, has been seeking out potential combatants who have that special spark of, ruthlessness that could really help win the war. And this general had been, spying on Tom, watching how he plays games. And so he tested Tom with a simulation that Tom thought was a game, and Tom was the only one who actually was both smart enough and ruthless enough to completely pass the test of the game. So that's why the general decided to approach Tom to recruit him for the military. And at first Tom is hesitant. He doesn't really like the corporations that are, greedy and bad, and especially knowing that his stepfather is a representative for one of them. Well, not his stepfather, his mother's boyfriend, technically. He doesn't really want anything much to do with the war, except he does want to make something for himself. He wants more of a steady future, and that's what this opportunity is for him. Even though he'd be away from his dad, he could support his dad financially with the salary that he's given, or that he would be given as a soldier in the military. Well, technically not a soldier. He's not a soldier yet. He could be once he's an adult, and if he decides to enlist. But the combatant program is military-esque, but they're not actually soldiers. It's a little bit different. They're still semi-civilians. So yeah, that's the opportunity that Tom is being presented with, and he decides to take it, which his dad does not agree with at first, but after seeing how much Tom really, really does want this, his dad is like, alright, fine, I'll sign the waiver, you can go. So Tom gets to the Pentagonal Spire, I think it's called. It's essentially this. It's a high security building where all the combatants stay. They can't really go much further than it. They can go a little bit around Washington D.C., but they can't explore that much further because they are assets to the military, and they are highly classified. Like, their identity should not ever be known to anybody. And so they're kept under close watch. But Tom gets there, and he realizes, hey, how do the combatants exactly, like, control the technology in space? It involves a process where you have to get technology installed in your head. So you get a neural processor, that's what they're called, which makes you kind of a lot more technology-y. You're still human, you still have your personality, your thoughts, your everything. It's just the technology in you essentially makes your brain like a hard drive. You remember things with a lot more accuracy. You are able to hook into the technology in space to be able to control it via your mind. You're able to control yourself kind of like a computer. You can also hack into other people like a computer, or other people who are training to be combatants. You can also hack into their brains and give them viruses that make their body like do things. That can be in the form of a prank. That could also be extremely deadly. So you have to be very careful with knowing your programming, because knowing how to program could save your life if you really need it. And that's why they offer that as a class, as part of their education for being combatants and also being students. They get, like regular education. But the classes go by quicker because they can remember things a lot easier and just download their homework. So that's pretty fun. And I'm honestly, like, this book, I think, has me debating a little bit on whether I would be inclined to get one, because I admit the remembering things is appealing. The being able to do math and remember how to spell anything, know how to look up anything in a second, all of that is appealing. But the way that the technology gets abused in this book is just, it has so many horrible possibilities for completely changing a person that I would be a little less inclined to. I feel like if it became a thing, like a public thing for most people to consider getting, I'm not sure I'd want to, because I feel like there'd be a ton of scammers who would figure out how to get inside your head, or, hackers, and just use you to become like a walking advertisement, or to kidnap people or do crimes or something. I don't know, it just seems like there's such horrible implications that having a computer in your brain has. But this book has a lot of interesting situations on it, so yeah, that's kind of the starting whole thing of the book, all of that. So throughout this time, of him training, Tom makes friends. He also makes plenty of enemies, because he's extremely loyal, so much so that he'd get out of a lot of situations that are extremely painful or difficult on him if he had just, ratted out his friends, but he absolutely would not, even at the absolute worst of times that he was having. He just wouldn't give away what his, wouldn't give away his friends, or he wouldn't betray them. So that was super cool to read, just because time and time again he would just do that same sort of thing. And yeah, and just I love too the way his friends support him back, because it's not one-sided. I mean, if they realize something's up with him, they will take action and they will fight for him, they will help him. And they're all kind of, they all have different sort of quirks about them, and they're all funny in different ways. And they all sort of have this ride or die mentality that is really cool to see when they're all put together, because they will work together to figure out how to, just how to save each other, how to help each other. But they also are competitive between each other, so they bring out the most funny sides of each other, the most competitive, the most caring's not the right word, but like vulnerable maybe. And it's just really cool to read that kind of friend group. And their inside jokes are great as well. Yeah. I started talking about the friend group before I meant to, actually. I meant to, like, say one more thing about Tom, at least, is that as well as being, like, extremely loyal, he's also just very defiant. He's very proud. He doesn't want to, bow to somebody just because they say to, just because they're supposed authority. If they don't earn his respect first, he feels like there's no need to respect them. Especially if, like, their plan is worse than his, or, something or other. That's the example I thought of. And it gets him in trouble. But it's also funny how he responds to it, because he will absolutely work to find ways to get what he wants. And yeah, I feel like that I could see him being a bit of a pain in real life, but it's so much fun to read. And also I root for him. Like, I can't not root for him. So he's so much fun. Yeah. Tom. And yeah. So I guess I'll go. Oh, did I describe kind of all of the stuff he faces? I guess just if I want to, like, give you a general sort of overview of the kind of stuff he faces without, like, going into heavy detail. In addition to the problems with having technology in your brain, and also the problems that come with training to be in a war, also just the active problems of events that are actively happening in the war, as well as figuring out how the politics work with the various capitalistic companies, you know, and how they the companies are the ones that actually sponsor the combatants. So companies actually choose specific ones, like specific combatants to sponsor. So you want to essentially get on the good side of at least one of the companies, so that you can be a combatant. And remember how I noted that Dalton, who is Tom's mother's boyfriend, Dalton was a representative for one of those companies that Tom really doesn't like. So he comes into play whenever he hears that Tom is in the program. And so suddenly Tom is useful to him, as being a potential combatant for whatever Dalton's company is. I don't remember the name. So there's that. And also, is there any other, like, thematic stuff in there that I can say? Just stuff to do with his friends, I would say. Not just, like, socially, like what's going on with their social lives, of course. because they're both competitive and they both like playing games, so they start just playing games against each other, and so that's fun. It's fun seeing their dynamic. It's really interesting too, of just they bond over how goofy they both are, and just how they both like playing games, and they're both competitive, but they don't ever they don't have poor sportsmanship. That's the thing. Like, I think that's really what keeps them both able to develop this sort of friendship that they have, because of the playing games that they do, which of course they don't tell anybody, because it sounds maybe a little bit like they're traitors or treasonous, but they don't say anything confidential to each other. They just kind of banter and taunt each other. So yeah, there's that little dynamic in there as well. But yeah, there's just so much in this book. I love it so much. I want to talk about it with people. So if anybody else has happened to read this book, please let me know what you thought of it. Because I think it's like a canon event in my childhood that veered my path toward being an author and reading a lot of science fiction. Yeah. So that's the general overview. I think I have said a lot already, but I do want to say a few more things. And yes, I am trying to be concise, and I may be a little bit failing, but I love this book so much, so I'm trying, but yeah, let me take a peek at my notes, and see what else I wanted to say. Alright, let's just talk about a little bit more on the side characters, because I feel like the friendship dynamic stuff, there's so much I could say that is so appealing about the book because of Tom's friend group. But I think I really should just let you read that for yourself, because it's most ideal that way, I think. They're just goofy, they're comical, they're great. They're all great together. And yeah. So what generally can I say about, I guess, all the side characters? As in the entire cast, feels like they all feel so real. They each have their own personality. There's not a single character that, if you decided to name a random character in this book, I would be able to tell you about their personality in a few words, or in many words, because I feel like the characters they show who they are so well in their actions and their words. Every single character has something to them, even the ones that don't show up as much. There's just something about them that I can definitely describe for you, about them, and that's not something I get from most books, if that makes sense. Most books, there's a few characters, the main characters, that I can tell you about. This one though, or this book, it just really feels like they're fleshed out, even the ones that barely show up. So I find that very impressive. Yeah. And just in terms of representation, the book has, the cast has people of color, people from different nationalities, including among Tom's friends. Tom has a group of 3 friends. There's a brown Indian boy. There's a white American girl and a white Russian boy. And they've got, different features. And I I also appreciate that the should I say their names? Anyway, I appreciate that the girl is the only one who knows what she's doing with programming. I love female representation in STEM, you know. And it's also just super funny how she starts off the book being very like kind of self-conscious, kind of awkward about showing her skill in programming and such. But throughout the book, her friends coax out of her kind of this competitiveness and her pride in how well in her work ethic, you know, how well she does things. And I do have to wonder if she's neurodivergent as well, because they definitely throughout the book show instances where she has specific social cue unawareness things, and she's blunt a lot of the time, but doesn't realize she's being blunt or that other people are taking it that way. I don't know, I kind of have to wonder if she's definitely autistic coded to me, but I don't know if she actually is canonically. I wonder if the future books say. I don't know. That would be my guess though, based on her traits, you know. But I won't say that as strict, this is representation in this book, because I don't know. But yeah, there's that too. I really there were a couple things I noticed on rereading that made the experience particularly enjoyable. One of the things is I really appreciate the time the book takes to explain how the world works. It's not like an info dump, it's just it gives you bursts of information throughout the book, you know, when it's necessary, and also to set up future stuff. So learning about the war and corporations and everything, that's learning that steadily over the whole book really helped me for easing into the universe, while also the plot kept plotting, you know, it kept going along, and I was following along well enough, but it still took my mind a little bit to really settle in with the ideas that were being conveyed, really, just what exactly had happened to the world between now and then. So that was really helpful to me. Even though I'd already read this book, it's still, I feel like a lot of the details were lost between when I last read this, or first read this, and now, you know. So I'm really glad that it steadily helped me actually understand what was going on, so that I could reintroduce myself to it and remember everything, you know, or relearn everything, more like. And the other thing that was really enjoyable about rereading this was that I didn't remember a lot of the book, and some things came to me in bursts when I went, oh, that's gonna happen, that's right. And then other times I really didn't remember until I read it. But the thing is, with the way the book is written, a lot of the stuff that happens later is set up early on, with specific keywords. And census device is an example of that. Whenever they introduced census device about near the beginning-ish to middle of the book, I just had a visceral reaction to it of I shuddered and recoiled from the book, and I didn't remember why. I just knew there was something about census device that near the end of the book, it was associated with a horrible scene near the end of the book. That's all I remembered. But when I got to that word, just that recoil, that there was a character name, who I know is a villain in later books, but he isn't fully explored in this book. But just seeing his name made me go, ugh, as well. You know, it gave me that full, shuddering reaction. And I think that's so cool that a book can do that. That it just, even though the memory isn't there, I don't know why I am dreading whatever's associated with these words. I do, because the book left so much of an impact on me in relation to those words, and so that triggered like just a feeling from what I remember reading, even though I don't remember what it was I read. So I found that super cool, and I didn't remember what census device was until I read that scene again, and I went, oh, that's why I had this reaction to it. So it's just, that was so cool reading that and going, this is an experience that I'm not sure has any other sort of like equivalent that I can easily like pull up an analogy to, you know. So I'm curious if anybody else has experienced that as well with like a book you haven't read in a long time. If there are like words that pull up feelings for you, but not like the full memory. Yeah, I'm curious about that, especially because of my disorder. It toys with my memory, so I don't actually know if this is like a thing associated with my disorder or if it's just I read it a long time ago and that's why I'm experiencing this, you know. So I'm curious if anybody else has experienced that kind of thing too. Yeah, I think you can only really get that from rereading a book though, that you haven't read in a long while, because yeah, this really was super cool of an experience, because it wasn't like reading the book for the first time, but it was reading a book after a long enough time that I didn't remember all of it, but I knew it was going to be a good time, you know. This was going to be a good experience. And it also wraps up really well, so I mean, it is part of a trilogy, it's the first of a trilogy, and it doesn't exactly leave on a cliffhanger, it kind of wraps up. But there is something that happens at the end that makes me want to read the next book, because I really want to know what's going to happen with the dynamic between Tom and another specific character. But you don't get to know until the next book, so I don't even remember how that goes, like how it starts off in the next book, you know? So I'm really curious, because I only remember maybe one or two events from the second book. Yeah, and one of them's really horrible. And the other one is, like, I don't remember enough of it to determine whether I think it was horrible. It was definitely violent, I remember that. But I very vaguely remember it, and I'm not even sure how much of it is accurate in my head. So I'll be really curious to read that scene. I think it's near the end of the second book. Or near the end of the third book, for all I know. I think it's the second one, though. I thought it was the end of this first book. So I'm really unsure where that scene is. Yeah, this is a super cool experience rereading these. I'm really tempted to dive into the second book right away. Especially because, with my memory and such, I'm not sure how well I'll remember this book if I read something else between it and the next one. But my library holds are coming in all of a sudden, and so I'm going, wait, I need more time, because I started reading Insignia because I didn't have any library books that were available out of my list of holds, and then all of a sudden they started coming in this week. So now I have to decide whether I'm going to continue with Vortex, which is the second book in this series, or if I'm going to take a break by reading another book, and then coming back to Vortex. We will see. That's for me to problem solve. Yeah, so this book is so much fun. Really, this book series and The Diabolic, which is also by S.J. Kincaid, those two book series, the two series, the Insignia series and the Diabolic series, are both by S.J. Kincaid, and yeah, those two really got me into science fiction. The Diabolic didn't come out, though, until a few years after Insignia. So that was more my teenage years, while these were more like, Insignia was like my preteen years age kind of time period. Yeah. Alright, I think I have talked for long enough. Although part of me is going, no, talk more, I love this book. But I think that is plenty. And maybe it convinced you to want to read this book or read more about it, or maybe follow S.J. Kincaid on Instagram or Threads, or maybe not. And maybe it was just kind of a, enjoyable experience to just kind of listen to my voice for a bit. No problem if it is. Yeah. So I really appreciate you listening. You are an awesome listener. Wherever you go next, whatever you do next, I hope that it is fun and or relaxing and or worthwhile to you. Ideally, all three.